Hello and welcome. In this video here, we'll take a look at the thermal performance and also, of course, the audible performance from the Legion 7i for 2024. This laptop here features an RTX 4070 that runs at 100 watts for gaming performance, but can boost up to 140 watts in different workloads, be it rendering, or other performance type workloads as well. So that said, here in this particular video, we'll cycle through the different modes here, starting with performance mode, the balance mode, and of course you're using the Lenovo AI engine. And also we'll be demonstrating the silent mode here in the gaming performance in silent wattage configurations on this laptop. Of course, all of these tests here will be performed with AC power plugged in. We will not be doing any battery testing here for gaming. That's generally a bad idea, as it will drain tremendous amounts of power quite quickly and will reduce the overall longevity of your battery quite quickly as well. So avoid battery gaming at all costs if possible. And of course, in this video here, we'll start with the lowest mode, which is the quiet mode, and work all our way up. The methodology that's been adopted for this is to first run a benchmark, such as this one here for Black Myth Wukong, for about 30 minutes on the highest performance mode to soak in as much heat as possible into the chassis of this device. And then from there on out, we'll start with the quiet mode, jump into the balance mode with the Lenovo AI engine enabled, and then finally with the performance mode here. And finally, we'll also give you one test of the custom mode. Keep in mind that the custom mode, there is so many different configurations and toggles here that it doesn't really count, because you can have an umpteen number of configurations, and my test results here will vary quite significantly from yours. So the reason for demonstrating the custom mode here is going to be if you really limit and clamp the wattages on these CPUs, particularly the 14900HX that's in this Legion 7i, and in addition you crank up the wattage to that GPU, which is the RTX 4070, and crank up the fans all the way to the maximum, you may be able to get another few percentage points of performance and maybe a few FPS extra as far as the effort is concerned there. Now keep in mind though that these manufacturers built in these preset modes for a reason. So if you have quiet mode, balance mode, and performance mode, they are tuned at certain performance levels for both the CPU and the GPU, and fan noise, and of course the chassis ability and capacity to cool the components within it. So if you're not looking to play around too much, or if you would rather not be bothered with tweaking the laptop and eking out perhaps another 2 or 3 frames per second, then the best thing here you can do is to either play in the performance mode when you want to game, or if you couldn't even be bothered to do that, simply drop it into the balance mode, enable the Lenovo AI engine, and over time it will get smarter and better and track your habits when you're playing games versus just working versus watching videos and just surfing the net, and it will figure out how to balance the performance levels and the wattages to the CPU and GPU and the other relative components in the machine to give you the best possible outcome for the particular scenario that you're currently in. All right, first things first here, we've started with the Lenovo Vantage software in the silent mode. So let's demonstrate it here. We're playing in actually the quiet mode. So we've got this benchmark running here. This is Black Myth Wukong. I've got this benchmark running on a loop, and we're seeing about 60 FPS settings, 60 FPS on these settings. The settings here are running at the full native resolution. That's 2560 by 1600 of this display, very high preset. We've got full ray tracing turned on, and we've got frame generation turned on, and DLSS set to quality mode here. So we've got all of the bells and whistles here enabled on this game to try to reach as high a peak performance as we possibly can. We'll show you here what the power levels are running at roughly about quiet mode. So we're going to see roughly about 55 to 60 watts on that GPU. So the RTX 4070 is pushing about 60 watts, and you can see here we're getting a pretty locked 60 FPS with full ray tracing, with the occasional dip there and the blip on the actual frame time radar, but overall pretty good performance here. Now the actual lows are quite low. They're close to 30 to 40 FPS, but we're getting a stable average frame rate of about 60 FPS here. And if we take a look at the sound readings here at ear level, We'll see here that it is audible at roughly about 40 decibels. I mean, it's audible. You know that the fans are running, but it's certainly not going to cause any interruption into your gameplay experience. I've got the volume muted here currently, but if you had the volume at full blast or even at 50%, you would easily be able to drown out the fan noise from this particular laptop running in that mode. Now, let's give you some surface temperatures here. We'll start with the WASD keys and kind of hover around the QWERTY key keyboard, because that's generally where you'll be placing your hands and your fingertips when you're actually gaming. With your other hand on the mouse off to the right side. Because the venting on this particular laptop is towards the back behind the display, you're not going to have any hot air blasting onto your hands on the left or the right side of the chassis here. That's a very good choice from Lenovo right there. So let's start here and we'll take some readings around the WASD keys first. And we see that right around the WASD keys, we've got a maximum here of about 34 degrees. Nothing really to complain about. Very, very comfortable temperatures, and you could play at this surface temperature for quite a few hours. Now we'll just kind of wander around here around the keyboard a little bit, particularly around the left-hand side of the cluster here, the tabs, caps lock key, the shift key, the control function key, Windows, Alt, spacebar, etc. This is generally where your left hand would be placed when you're actually gaming. So we'll just take some quick readings here and see what we can find is the highest temperature overall here in quiet mode. Mind you, keep in mind we're only pushing about 60 watts to that RTX 4070, so we can see here now we've got a maximum of 41 degrees Celsius. Again, nothing really to complain about. If you rest your hands over here, I can feel that the surface is cool to the touch, and you can see a little bit of, or feel a little bit of slight air draw. Of course, the fans are not running at full blast here, but if you leave your hands there long enough, you'll sense the cool sensation as air is being drawn in through the keyboard deck here and then exhausted out the back. Of course, air is also drawn out in through the bottom as well. All right, so we'll leave our benchmark here running. The next thing we'll do is hop over to Lenovo Vantage. Let's or boost this up to the balance mode. And first we'll do this without the Lenovo AI engine or any of the smart FPS boosts from the AI off. We want to see just the performance from the native balance mode here. So we'll let it run for about a minute or so before we come back and take some additional readings for you. While we're doing that here though, we don't want to waste any time. The fans are ramping up. In about 30 seconds to a minute, the fans would have fully ramped up to the level that's been specified by the manufacturer, in this case Lenovo, for this particular preset. So balance mode will have a certain level of fan settings here. We'll let it reach that peak setting and then we'll take some readings here. Let's see what kind of decibel readings we can get. Again, not bad at all, considering that, you know, we're running at balance mode and we're running at a locked 60 FPS here at QHD plus resolution. At ear level, we're seeing about 45 to 46 decibels. I would say that's pretty typical. Again, you can feel and sense that the fans are a little bit more audible than they were before, but it's certainly nothing that's going to be very distracting or very annoying. Of course, another thing that Lenovo's been doing really, really well in the last year or two, you know, and particularly also ASUS with their Zephyrus 16 and the Zephyrus and the ProArt P16 series, their top of the stack, if you will, is that their fans are tuned very well, very well. So you're not going to get any of that whiny, high-pitched noise that you would have seen from some of these manufacturers a few years ago. You know, they've really upped their game in terms of the fans. Lots of fins, lots of tech and R&D has gone into the fans themselves. So again, I believe now it's quite settled. Let's take another quick reading before we move on to surface temperatures. So about 40 to 46 decibels in terms of the audio reading. Now let's take some surface temperatures here with our temperature gun. We'll start at around the WASD keys here, and we can see, you know, taking some surface temperatures here. Very comfortable. Again, a little bit slight higher, 36.4 degrees is the maximum here, but again, nothing that you would be complaining about. Very comfortable to play at this setting for quite a long period of time. All right, we'll just hover around here the keyboard a little bit to see if we can find some more hot spots. We'll just poke around the QWERTY keys in the left-hand control cluster, particularly the tab key, the caps lock key, shift, control function, alt, spacebar, etc., as you would be using those commonly in games for your actions. So we see here again nothing too crazy here. 43 degrees is the max. Again, very comfortable. Now our average temperature is about 39 degrees here, so there are hot spots, but certainly if I put this aside here and I give you just a hand rest test, I can feel a little bit more of that cool air being drawn now, more so than I was in the quiet mode. It's a little bit more pronounced in this state because the fans are spinning ever so slightly higher. We saw from the noise meter that we've jumped up from 39 decibels, so roughly to about 45 to 46 decibels. and that will be the performance from this laptop, the Legion 7i, in the balance mode without any of the Lenovo AI engine or the FPS boost from the AI core enabled. So now we'll hop in, we'll enable those two functions, and we'll take all of these readings again to give you an idea what happens when you do toggle on the Lenovo AI core, the Lenovo AI engine, and if we can get any kind of a performance or noise boost here. So first thing we'll do is toggle on the Lenovo AI Engine Plus. You can see here it really pushes some extra power to the GPU. We'll also toggle on our Enable Smart FPS Boost using the AI core, and this is going to balance the power levels much more. So we can already see that the fan speed is starting to ramp up here. So we'll take a reading in just a moment. We'll allow it to settle 30 seconds to about a minute or so. We can still see here that the gameplay is actually very smooth. It's at a very locked 60 FPS, again with full ray tracing turned on, with DLSS set to quality mode, frame generation enabled, and of course at the Quad HD resolution that's native to this display and to this laptop. So certainly increase, as we see here that now our FPS boost and the AI core and the AI engine have decided to push some more power to the laptop. We're now seeing decibel readings at ear level of roughly about 50 decibels. At this level, there's no mistaking that the fans are certainly on, but as I mentioned, if you have the volume turned up halfway or more, these speakers are actually quite good. You will easily drown out the sound that's being produced by the speakers here. And of course, the speakers, they're not, there's no coil whine to them. And we'll just take the other microphone here and let you guys hear close up to the actual speakers what the sound is like. So just give us a moment here. So it's a very soft whooshing sound. It's quite comfortable to listen to, and after a few minutes of it, you tend to drown it out quite easily. I found this to be the least annoying of the laptops that I've tested in the last 2 years, and you're easily able to tune out that noise and that fan whooshing sound. It's a more natural airflow sound rather than a very high-pitched draw where you can tell that something mechanical is moving and really pushing that air around the room. It's a very nice sounding sound profile here. So in the Lenovo AI mode, let's take some temperature readings to see if there's been any impact to the surface temperatures around the WASD keys. We'll start here first, and around the WASD keys we can see here not really too much of a change, I believe. Slightly higher, if we can ever say that. So 34.7 is our average, maxing out at about 36.4 degrees. Again, very comfortable. You can play at this setting for many hours without having any concerns about comfort levels. So we'll also now wander around a little bit further around the keyboard to see, maybe 1 through 6, 7, because sometimes the numerical keys are used to activate special powers and functions and effects and whatnot in games. And just wandering about halfway over through the QWERTY keyboard here, and certainly the left control modifiers, the tab, caps lock, shift, control, function, alt, and spacebar. Across these rows here, and we can see we're getting a maximum temperature very similar to what we saw without the AI engine and the AI core enabled. So 42 degrees max and 32.1 degrees Celsius is our average surface temperature there. So again, very comfortable. You're not going to have any complaints about this. And let's just show you the power levels here. So in the balance mode with the Lenovo AI engine here, as you can see, we're running between 83 to 90-ish watts. Kind of bouncing between there depending on what's happening on the screen here, but at about 80 to 90 watts here on that GPU, we're getting a locked 60 FPS on this benchmark. Our CPU is sitting at about 4500 megahertz, drawing about 40 watts of power, and the GPU is all the way up there at 2625 megahertz. All these components are running quite cool. We can see here the CPU is at 78 degrees and the GPU is at 76 degrees, so well within the comfort zone of where I think laptop CPU and GPU should be under very heavy load and a gaming session. So finally we'll hop out now, and the last mode we'll switch into before we show you the custom, just to show you the ability to really tweak and tune these laptops before we wrap up with the full weight of this, or the full mode of the actual fans here. So we'll now hop into performance mode. And this is the preferred mode for you to be gaming. So if you're going to be gaming, try to use performance mode whenever possible, unless there's some reason you want to use balance mode. Or like I said, if you can't be bothered, there's absolutely nothing wrong with enabling balance mode, turning on the Lenovo AI engine and the FPS boost from the AI core, and just let it run. Over time, it will slowly start to profile, and that data will help it to better determine how much power to push based on which workload you run. For example, if you're always playing Valorant, or if you always play Diablo 4, or you're pretty much a League of Legends guy, over time it will learn those routines, and it will figure out how much power to push when you're in that particular application, and it'll be basically a no-brainer in terms of a gaming laptop when you need it, and you can hop out and do your work or studies, and it'll be just fine. So all right, now that we've got performance mode wrapped up here, we can still see a very, very smooth 60 FPS. And let's take some temperature, some audible readings here, excuse me. We'll check some decibel levels. So this is where I think this laptop gets pretty impressive, is that, even at performance mode with as much power as possible cranked to this GPU and CPU combination, we're running only at about 50 decibels. So in this very slim package, so it's called the Lenovo Legion 7i, but it's really a very, very slim chassis here. And I think that's really, a feat of engineering that Lenovo has achieved with this particular laptop. Now we'll take some surface temperatures here with our temperature gun. Let's start with around the WASD keys first. So again, poking our temperature gun at this laptop, we'll see here very, very comfortable. We see a little bit more heat, 36.5 degrees and 33.2 as our average. But keep in mind that we're now pushing more power to both the CPU and the GPU combination, as we'll see in just a moment. And we'll expand and wander out a little bit further here across the QWERTY key, about halfway across the keyboard deck, and over to our modifiers on the left hand side: tab, caps lock, shift, control, alt, the space bar, the third row, the home row, and of course the top row here, to try and find our maximum temperature. And as we can see here, that again, very similar to what we saw in balance mode, about 41.2 degrees maximum and 37.5 degrees, a little bit higher on the average temperature, but again, very, very comfortable. And as I mentioned, if I set my hand here, it is now even more so prominent that you can feel there's airflow being drawn in through the keyboard deck here, and you can feel, a little bit of coolness around the fingertips. You're not gonna, resting my hand here, it's totally comfortable. There's a slight sensation of warmth, but nothing that's going to be uncomfortable, or you're going to have to say, hey, ouch, I'm going to remove my hand, as was the case 3 or 4 years ago with laptops from the 900 and even the 10 series generation GPUs. So we've come certainly a long way in terms of the actual laptop performance. All right, and we'll just show you here some numbers in terms of the actual wattages. We'll just wait for the benchmark to loop back here. So running in performance mode, this is the maximum potential wattage you're going to get to this particular GPU in this mode, but depends on the game as well, of course, and how the settings are configured. So here in the benchmark, we're getting a locked 60 FPS, only consuming about 78 watts of power on the GPU in performance mode. Tipping up to 80 and slightly over 80 at certain points here. We can see here now that the CPU starts to get quite hot as we're pushing it well above 5 gigahertz. We've got 52 to 56, 5700 megahertz toggling back and forth. 97 degrees now, and at certain points we're touching 100 degrees C on the CPU. About 60 watts of power being pushed to that. And this is no surprise, because the 13 and the 14th generation CPUs from Intel, the Raptor Lake and the Raptor Lake Refresh, the 13900HX and the 14900HX, which this laptop is running, were pretty much the same beast and consume tons and tons of power. That's how Intel was able to push those clocks to such insane levels. If you look, however, at the GPU is doing quite well. We're hovering between 75 to 85 watts roughly, with the occasional peak up to 110, 113 watts. But keep in mind that that's not the normal power draw here during gaming. We're seeing at about 80 to 81, maybe 82 degrees on the CPU. So still well within the thermal limits for the GPU. We're not going to get any throttling here at 86 or 87 degrees Celsius. But overall, very, very good gameplay experience here on this game with the Lenovo Legion 7i. And finally, to conclude this short video here, we'll wrap up by showing you the custom mode. We'll talk about a few of the different toggles there. We're not going to play too much. My only reason for showing you the custom mode here is to show you how loud the fans can get if you crank them all the way. And of course, Lenovo is one of those manufacturers that gives us full fan curve and level control over the fan speeds for our particular laptop. So let's toggle this off here. We'll hop out to Lenovo Vantage. We'll set up custom mode. And you can see here, as soon as you enable custom mode, you also get this additional toggle here, which says enable extreme mode to improve your performance. Now, this is going to basically remove some of the thermal limits that may be placed on your computer. I would not recommend this. It just sounds dangerous. I don't know if it is or not, but I haven't had the chance to test it yet. So, of course, if you click custom, you can actually tune your fan curves here. In this case, what we're going to do is just set it to full. We want to hear the most horrendous possible sound, or the loudest sound we possibly can from this, and we're going to set this to best performance. This is the power mode that's within your Windows operating system. And finally, one more toggle here is this performance mode, which allows you to tweak to your heart's content the different power levels and power limits to the CPU, the GPU, dynamic boost, the configurable TGP of the actual GPU itself, etc., etc. So there's lots of tuning that you could come in here and do. We're going to set the configurable TGP of our GPU to 90 watts, and we'll add another 15 watts of power on top, which will put us right at about 105 watts in terms of with dynamic boost. So if we set that here just as a demonstration, I'm not saying that these are the settings that you should be using, but we'll just use this to demonstrate. We'll click save here, and it's going to immediately start pushing that power. Let's give it a moment here. We'll wait about 30 seconds to a minute. We can certainly hear the fans. They've really cranked all the way up now. And let's just take some audible readings here to see what we set. About 55 to 56 decibels now with the fans fully cranked up. Of course, keep in mind that you wouldn't normally be playing in this mode unless you have a reason for going into the custom mode, tweaking with the fan settings and cranking the fans all the way up to get this amount of noise from this particular laptop. It is absolutely unnecessary. As you can see here, we'll still lock to a 60 FPS and we're getting a very, very stable gameplay experience here. So why would you do that to yourself if you can certainly get the similar experience from performance mode, or even with the balance mode and the Lenovo AI engine and the AI core enabled? That said, let's take some surface temperatures here finally with the performance mode. Before I do that though, as I set my hand here, I can definitely feel now that there's airflow being drawn in through the chassis here. So, something to take note. And as we read around the WASD keys here to begin with, we'll see here that there is now, the max temperature is 36.6 degrees and the average temperature is around 36.5 degrees. So pretty much on par with the surface temperatures there around the chassis. We'll wander around a little bit further here over on the number row and on our modifiers on the left hand side, which is tabs, caps lock, shift, control, function, alt, and of course the space bar, the bottom row here on our keyboard, QWERTY keyboard, and of course on our home row here to find where is the actual hotspot on this. And we'll see here roughly, so we got about 41.8 degrees. Now keep in mind the reason why it's like this is, you're going to say, well, wait a minute, this is lower. Of course this is lower because we've cranked up the fan speed and we're now pushing a lot more air across the chassis here and doing a better job at cooling this, which means the noise has gone up, but the cooling capacity has also increased, so our temperatures are actually slightly lower than what we saw in the performance mode or in the balance mode with the AI engine enabled. And average here is 34.8 degrees. Still very, very comfortable surface temperatures. You can, set your hands here and play using the keyboard itself and the keyboard deck for long periods of time. You won't have any issues with discomfort. So that's all I have to say in this video here with the actual heat, noise, and of course the different thermal profiles that are built into the Lenovo Vantage software. I think Lenovo does this quite well. They hit a home run with this. Lenovo's Vantage is one of the better softwares for managing and administering your laptop. I've used Alienware, I've used HP, I've used Gigabyte, I've used MSI, I've used pretty much all of the mainstream laptop companies here, and I've got to say that the Lenovo Vantage is one I quite like. It gives you all the controls and tweaks you would want to have in your custom mode, and if you couldn't be bothered with any of that stuff, well, the performance mode and the balance mode, particularly since they've started adding the Lenovo AI engine about 2 to 3 years ago, and the AI core is just fantastic. Set it and forget it, and I love that about my gaming laptops. Now keep in mind that you can also use the function Q toggle here, and you'll see these on-screen displays to cycle between the different modes. So this is performance mode, this will be quiet mode, and of course you have auto here, which is essentially your balance mode. So as you toggle between these different performance modes using just the function Q key on your keyboard, you don't necessarily even need to open up Lenovo Vantage. As long as you make sure that it is installed on the laptop, you'll be able to use this key combination to cycle through. So as you can see here, going back into performance mode now, the fan speed has dropped quite a bit. And if we look at our audio meter here, right under 50 decibels. So I think that's that's the preferred mode I believe that you should be playing games on. The reason it's called performance mode is to try and push as much power to that CPU and GPU for, of course, heavy workloads such as gaming, rendering, graphics, CAD, and so on and so forth. So essentially these laptops are not just gaming machines, but they're also workstation laptops for those of you who are looking for those heavy performant machines in this. So really all I have to say here about the Lenovo Legion 7i for 2024, a great performer, lovely thin chassis, a beautiful design here. Thermals are well in check. If you play on any of the pre-canned modes that are provided by Lenovo Vantage, you'll have a very good thermal performance experience here, and noise will be under control. The fan noise is actually nice and comfortable to live with, and you can certainly start to tune it out after being used to this laptop for a little while. And I think that bodes well for what's on offer here with the Legion 7i. No wonder it's such a popular laptop, and same goes for this one here for the 2024 generation. I'm quite excited to see what Lenovo brings to 2025 with the Lenovo Legion 5 and the Legion 7. Of course, the 5i and 7i as well with the Intel counterparts, but overall this is a winner in my books. So thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this content. Please click the like button, please click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you're the first to know when there's new content available here. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.